What's up everybody, my name is Ian and I'm making this video as a way to try and help out as many people as I possibly can with the whole college admissions process thing, because there is a lot of stuff to know and a lot of stuff that nobody tells you. I do have some credibility just because I applied to a bunch of schools and I got into every single one of them. That's not me trying to brag or anything like that, that's just me telling you what I did, and a lot of it is because I kind of thought about the admission process and I made myself really kind of stand out from the rest of the crowd. And I have put together a big old list of a bunch of tips and stuff that you need to know for the admission process, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be trying to share that with as many people as I possibly can. So tip number one is to kind of keep in mind what you're doing with the college application. Throughout the whole process, you're basically going to be trying to convey everything about you and who you are as a person to somebody that has never met you before. And you're going to have that mindset as you're going through the entire application, and you have to use every single resource available to you to kind of max out your application, which means in the activity sections of the Common App, you should be maxing that out from 1 to 10, and you should be ordering that in the scale of importance to you as a person. Because I mean, think about like the way you read a book. I mean, if something is like not interesting, you're just going to kind of breeze through it. You want to keep it interesting, and you want to have it like in a scale of importance, so they read the most important stuff to you first to kind of convey who you are as a person a little bit better. My second point is to not treat the essay like an essay. While you are writing something and you do have like some constraints, this is not something that's going to be graded for high school, so there's no need to treat it like it is. You want to be as descriptive as you possibly can with it. You want to act like you're telling a story to a friend or someone in your family, rather than, it's just something for a teacher to grade. Because what makes a good essay in high school versus what makes a good essay in general and something that people actually want to read are two very different things. You're not writing to a rubric here. You're writing to kind of convey who you are as a person, and that's something that you really want to keep in mind while you write your essay for the Common Application. Just because it would get an A in high school does not mean it's necessarily a good essay. Go back and read through all the stuff that you wrote in high school like so far, and I'm sure most of it is not going to be something that you would be extremely proud of. And you want the essay for the Common Application to be something that you are really, really, really proud of. Third point also revolves around the essay, and that's making it actually something that you want to write about and something that's interesting for the reader to actually read. I'm sorry, but if you're planning on writing about tearing your ACL or your parents' divorce, then pick a different topic. Thousands and thousands of kids write about the same basic stuff over and over and over again, and these readers are going to be reading through quite literally thousands of applications. So you really have to make it so you stand out to everybody else. For example, I wrote about learning how to ride a bike. While it doesn't sound like anything extraordinary and it sounds super bland, that's kind of what ties it together, is because I use riding a bike and learning how to ride a bike as a metaphor for how I learn and how I go about life. So not only was it interesting to read because I was very descriptive with how I wrote it and I kind of put a lot of emotion into it, but it also told a lot about me as a person and kind of like how the lessons I learned early in life have carried me through later in life. And fantastic essays, there's a ton of them available online. But if your essay does not live up to some of these essays that I have in the description, then really consider revising it, because most essays can be made good, but a lot of it has to do with picking a good topic. My fourth tip is to get started early on the application. You really do not want the application to be a huge stressor in your life by the time that school rolls around, because balancing school, work, friends, and senioritis on top of everything makes it so that it is extremely difficult to get the Common App done, and I've seen a lot of people mess that up just because they wait too long to get started on their application. Do it the summer before you enter your senior year. That way you have it out of the way and done, and you can just submit it once the deadlines actually open up. It makes it so much easier on you, and it makes it a little bit better even, just because you're going to already have it done and it won't be rushed. Tip number 5 is to theme your application. And this one sounds really weird and this one's really unconventional, but all the people that I know that got into Ivy League schools or top 20s have themed their applications. For example, one of my friends that's going to a fantastic school, like one of the top 20 in the entire United States, chose to theme his application around volunteer work. So for him, he's genuinely passionate about volunteer work. So when he wrote his essay and he did his Common App, everything kind of had an underlying theme of giving back to the community and volunteering as much as he possibly could. And this kind of makes it so that you stand out, because not a lot of people go through the effort of making, that extra step. For example, I am super passionate about business and working, and that's what I themed my entire application around. It was just work, business, learning, and failure. That was pretty much what I wrote about the majority of the time while I was doing my application. This can be a lot of work to make it so it works and actually kind of makes sense for your application. But doing this really shows that you're willing to go above and beyond, and that's what schools are looking for. They're not looking for your average Joe. Number 6 is to plan out your dates. Know when applications open and close, and learn how to plan out the decision plans. For example, if you plan everything out correctly, you can do early decision to your top reach school, and then early action for a couple of mid to top tier schools, and then do another early decision for another reach school, and then do rolling admission or regular decision for everything else. Doing this makes it so you have a higher chance, like statistically speaking, of getting into these schools. Number 7 is to apply to an easier school. And this is something that I think is really underrated, but if you were to go and you applied to a rolling admission school early on in the year, and then 2 or 3 weeks later you get that acceptance letter, it makes you feel so good, and so much stress immediately washes away, because no matter what happens for the rest of the applications, that you are going to be going to a decent college. I recommend checking your school email, just because I was able to get a couple of free applications through the emails, just because my grades were high enough or whatever, and they sent out those free applications, and sometimes those applications made it so you have to do less work, which is always nice. There's really no reason not to apply to a rolling admission school or something that's a little bit easier for you to get into. It makes you feel so good. Number 8 is to make yourself stand out. These schools are looking for the best of the best, and you have to make it seem like you are the best of the absolute best. So you have to make yourself stand out as much as you possibly can. For example, if you're into writing, start a blog. It's super easy to do, and you can just put some of the short stories that you've written on a Google site and then add that as a link. If you're into business, then you can start a little drop shipping store or start trading stocks. You can literally do it for free on Robinhood. If you're into math, then start a math help YouTube channel. It doesn't have to be anything extreme or extremely expensive, but doing stuff like this that you can actually show as work that you've done is super valuable, because a lot of students and a lot of kids do not go through with this extra step, and doing this extra step really means a lot to the people in the admissions offices at all these schools. Speaking of the admissions offices, number 9 is to contact the people in the admissions office. Now, this is one that a decent amount of people do, but still not everybody takes advantage of it. The admissions people all have their emails listed on whatever school they work for on their website. And then you can go through and you can contact them, you can email them, and then you can voice concerns, ask them questions, or whatever you want to talk to them about. And if you do it right, make sure you come off as a decent human being, because that really goes a long way, because nobody wants to talk to somebody who's being mean or snarky or entitled or whatever. People just don't want to deal with that. And if you go through and you contact them, then that already builds a little bit of name recognition. And the person, when they go through and read your application later, is more likely to know who you are, and they know that you're a decent person. And then if you do it right, then you can even try and get them to come out and visit you. For example, I emailed somebody at a school out of Texas, and then they ended up flying down to where I live, which is across the country, just to meet with me and talk about the school. And that's something that's fantastic. And even though I didn't end up going to that school, I still, talk to that person fairly regularly, just because we ended up kind of hitting it off. And it's something that everybody can do, as long as you have access to a computer and the internet, which obviously you do if you're watching this. Then you can email the people in admissions. 10, the last tip, make sure you nail the interview if you have to have one. And chances are, if you're applying to T20 schools or Ivy League, then they're going to want to interview you, especially if they're considering you for admission, or if you're right on the cusp of whether or not they're going to let you in or not. This one's easier said than done, and I'm gonna plan on making another video. Let me know if you want that, on how to do a fantastic interview, because I genuinely think that's one of the main reasons I got into the school, and while they say it doesn't make a huge difference, I feel like it kind of does. But just nail the interview, which is a lot easier said than done. But look online, figure out what questions are more likely to ask you, do your research about the school. You don't want to come off as not being knowledgeable, you don't want to say the wrong thing, and you really want to try and ask the interviewer questions if you can at the end, just because that makes it so you show genuine interest and are genuinely interested in going to the school. You want to be talkative, you kind of want to be assertive as well. My interview story is pretty crazy, but I genuinely do think it helped me get into my school. Yeah. Alright, well, that's everything for the application itself. I would like to do another video on the essay and the interview. If you thought this video was helpful, or if you want more, please share it with people and watch it again, subscribe, like it, do whatever, just because these videos get absolutely no views, and it would be kind of nice to get a couple. Anyway, this has been Ian. Thanks for watching.